Aloha. I don't really have a question, Talmadge, but today, this morning, you were in council, and we were getting a presentation from yourself and the mayor and others on housing. And someone came forward to talk about how they're being impacted and they are running out of rent money. Their home is still in Leilani. It can be occupied, but because of medical reasons, they can't. And so they wanted to know, they want some assistance with that. And Roxy Walchin, who's head of our Parks and Recreation, pulled me aside and said, you do know that people can apply to the Hawaii Community Foundation, which has created a Puna Recovery Fund, and they will help with rent. So I wanted to get that out here for the public to know, because I just found out that today. All right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Hang on. Thanks for that. There's a lot of help out there. Definitely, don't just kind of hold on to your questions and suffer. Make sure you're reaching out to folks so that we can get you that help.
Aloha. This question is for Mayor Kim. Is there any progress being made on the land exchange proposal that's being supported by Senator Ruderman?
Roy Takimoto was a person I assigned with Diane. Roy is my chief of staff and Diane is my director for R&D to begin a long process. The point I want to make here, outside of answering your question, is be prepared for something that's going to take us a while. This is a total project. This is almost, if you were to ask me to give me a name of the project, I would say the future of Puna. We're talking about options for people to live of different kind, including farming, nursery, and residential. We have the commitment of FEMA to work with us on this. We have the commitment of the governor, and he appointed his chief of staff to be on our committee. That project will go through. I ask for your patience. This is not an easy thing, but we will get it done. And this question and answer that Roy, I thought that was pretty neat, by the way, to start giving us ideas of who you are. And as you know, Roxy said this morning, every single person in the shelter is being interviewed on what their needs are, et cetera, et cetera. The process will, I think some of you heard, of 18 months. It's a year and a half. I'm not saying it will take that long, but we put that out there for you to realize this is, because we're not just talking about divvying up land. We are talking about building a community, which means the resources of road, resources of the water, power, and those things, which will take time to plan and implement. My promise to you is give us time and we'll get this done.
This is for Talmadge. I'm the person who testified this morning, and that's who Eileen was talking about. I want to read this just quick. As of the date of this letter, the subject property is uninhabitable dwelling located in a voluntary evacuation area of Leilani Estates. Now, the word voluntary, as I brought out this morning, has given FEMA the idea that my house is livable. And it is livable, except for my 76-year-old wife has a heart condition, and it would kill her to live in that house. Now, this letter is fine. It allows people to go back in, and I understand that, but it needs to be clarified better. There should be special needs. There should be a time, and it would be nice if you'd listen to me. Yeah, okay. All right. It would be very nice if there would be special needs written in there for people that are sick, people with children. I know 3 families with young children. Their houses are fine, but they can't live there. And so I would like this letter rewritten and sent out so that I can walk into FEMA and hand them this letter plus my wife's medical records. Thank you.
To answer your question, because I already did talk to him about it, And Roy has been called up here to answer your question, so I assure you I was not being rude to you.
Thank you.
In regards to that, we have to be very careful in regards to such semantics. Staff knows that in regards to declaration of emergency, whether you were ordered to evacuate, not ordered. These are all FEMA laws for eligibility. Talmadge, is pursuing it. Roy will directly now answer your question if you don't mind.
Thank you.
We have a meeting tomorrow with FEMA, SBA, a whole bunch of other people who are all tied up with these letters and what they mean. We had written those letters at the request of insurance companies, Red Cross, and it worked for some and it worked against some. So we're trying to straighten that all out. And you gave me information earlier which was very instructive, because we were relying on FEMA's inspectors to make that kind of individual determination of need. And you showed me that FEMA denied your requests and didn't take into consideration your special medical needs. So that will be brought up tomorrow, and we'll see if something like a doctor's note, if there will be a basis for FEMA for you to appeal their initial decision. So if there are any other special situations like that, yeah, like Talmadge said, raise them. And this is a learning, evolving process. So we hope to make changes as we go along as needed.
One more thing. I had 2 inspectors from FEMA come to my house right up there and both days they came, it was absolutely gorgeous. The weather was nicer in Leilani than it was in Hilo. So that's how they made the decision. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, that maybe the inspection shouldn't be based on an instantaneous one-time thing, but kind of looking at the average conditions. So we'll raise that point tomorrow too.
And just to share a little bit more information with you guys, FEMA is working on the way the gas evolves in the Lower East Rift as far as modeling, durations, and so forth. So, we're looking into the big picture as well.
My question is for Steve Brantley. He's back there now.
Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, my name is Pedro Tama, and my wife and I have a home in Opihikau. We're directly south of Fissure 8, 3 miles downslope. And every night we can look through our doorway and see the red, orange, yellow glow. And it's hard to sleep because if the flow changes course and comes south, if we do the arithmetic about the rate of flow of the lava and the distance and the steepness of the slope, it could get to us in less than half an hour. That's my calculation. I'd like to double check that with you. And if that happens in 2 o'clock in the morning, what do? We might not even know about it till it's 5 minutes away. So I'd like Steve to discuss a little bit about what's the time frame for a change of course of the river coming out of Fissure 8 based on experience with Pu'u'o'o, which we know in 2014 changed its course radically to go to the northeast instead of the southeast or whatever. What's a likely scenario of the physics and the structural changes and how long that would take for the flow to change course radically to the south?
That's a very challenging question to answer. The Pu'u'o'o activity that you're talking about back in 2014 was the result of a new fissure that formed on the flank of Pu'u'o'o. And that fissure developed very, very quickly. but it took a long time for the flow to extend more than about 3 kilometers, 2 miles from the cone. This is a very different situation in that that particular flow, the amount of lava coming out of the ground in 2014, was quite low, on the order of 2 to 4 cubic meters per second. This is putting out maybe between 50 and 100 cubic meters a second, maybe more. So you're right, it's a very different situation. If the lava coming out of Fissure 8 gets redirected into one particular corridor, then that flow is going to move very quickly. How fast, that's really hard to say.
Well,
It really is hard to say because it depends on, is it spread out? Where from the channel? What does the downslope topography look like? But to get to your question about Opikau, you know, we've been talking about that for a long time with the Fissure 8 when it became the dominant fissure and has been very stable, is for flows to move southward. There's a bit of a low area to the south of Fissure 8. And a very gentle slope there. So it's going to, all the flow from Fissure 8 has to all of a sudden go that way, fill in the low area before it tops over and starts flowing downhill. And depending on exactly where it tops over, that's going to be the downslope direction. And it might vary. I can't tell from the flow map there. We'd have to do a more close inspection of the downslope direction from Fissure 8. The real question, I think, is whether there will be another fissure open up somewhere along and above the intrusion of magma that we know went beneath Highway 130 all the way down to Fissure 17. There's still active magma down there, and if Fissure 8 shuts off and magma is still continuing through the rift zone, it can pop up somewhere else. We don't know where. It could be uprift, much further uprift to where your community might not be affected, but others could. And that's part of the reason why we have crews on 24/7. I mean, really, it's the only reason that we have our crews out there 24/7. If they see something dramatically different, if they see the cone starting to fail, or they see cracks forming on the cone, we've seen a few in the past week or two, but if we see significant change, that information is communicated to Hawaii County Civil Defense immediately. And so that's, I guess, that's the best that we can do, is we have eyes on the ground, we're communicating. We have drones that we're using as well at night. So we think we're in a pretty good position to see that kind of a dramatic change.
Thanks. And so
Thank you very much.
if you're at home sleeping and you're in Opikau, we've got a roadblock, a staff roadblock down the road from you. Those guys will know exactly what's happening. They'll go door to door. They'll wake you up and they'll get you out of there.
Hi, I'm Patty. I'm in Leilani, and I kind of had a similar question. We're only 1 block from the barricades, and we see the glow of Fissure 8 too every night. And are there any cameras set up that's, I guess, someone, is watching that during the night? It's kind of similar to him. If something changed in the middle of the night, we wouldn't know. Thank you.
I guess illustrate how difficult it is to make some of the decisions. Because as you know, the easiest thing to do is say everybody out and we don't worry about you. But we know the pledge we made to try to keep normality as best as possible in a highly abnormal situation. We had this identical situation as for the middle of the night, between 1 and 3 in the morning, where people had to go house to house. We had this identical same thing on a rushing river of 800 yards per hour for Kapoho and Vacation Land, And they went out there at that time again to tell people if you don't move within a day, you'll be isolated. I know you people want to stay. I think some of you know we get criticized for having you to move out, and rightfully so, that is your home. But I think if you listen to Talmadge's message, we will do our job. HVO is with us 24 hours a day. That office is manned. The people are out there, and their mission is to keep an eye open. But you are also being asked to, we need your eyes and ears also. So as Talmadge's message is always say, you need to keep alert and help us out.
Thank you all for coming. We'll plan this again for next week. We'll be around for questions. So the folks that we didn't get to, the resources are around here. Just come on up. Thank you. Have a good evening.